Welcome everyone, I'm the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Brigandine, the Legend of Runersia, how should pronounce that. So yeah, this is another Brigandine game. I'm not going to say it's a new one. I think this one originally came out on one of the Nintendo systems, I think probably the Wii U, I don't remember. Those who have been on my channel, I do have a playthrough of the original Brigandine on the PlayStation 1. Which is one of my top games I enjoy playing. It's a really, really fun strategy RPG. It did have its flaws. The AI wasn't perfect, and in the PlayStation version in particular, there wasn't really much of an ending. But it was really fun to kind of mess around with all the builds and the strategies you can play that game with. There was another version of Brigandine that came out for, I think, a handheld system. I want to say one of the DS's, but I don't remember which one. And that one was essentially the same as the previous Brigandine, but had an actual kind of final boss fight type thing. And then there's this one, which I think came out on Wii U, but I don't remember exactly. I know people commented on my Brigandine playthrough mentioning this game was coming out or something along those lines. But since it was on a console, and I don't play on consoles, it was unfortunately unavailable to me until it came out on Steam. The Steam version is mostly identical. I believe they have one new game type on it, which gets unlocked when you beat the game. I have not beaten the game. I've done a personal playthrough that's gone through the majority of the game, and I actually attempted to record this playthrough a while back, but I ended up scrapping it because I wasn't happy with the content. So I'm going to be trying this again, and play through to the end, hopefully. Anyway, so we're going to do a new game. So yeah, there's there's training mode, which I guess is a tutorial. We're not going to worry about that. Alternate chapter, which is unlocked after clearing the main game, and then there's origin chapter, which is creative mode. So challenge mode is essentially you're going through the main game with a set of characters, and you're trying to get the highest score possible. And I believe there's some unlocks that happen if you get certain scores. And then Origin, I believe, chapter is actually, I think, the new game mode on the PC version, which essentially lets you kind of paint the map with as many factions as you want, or any number of factions, and they can have any number of territories. So, for example, you can do a playthrough where you start with only one territory, and the rest of the world is taken over by your opponents. And you have kind of a little bit of custom control over what characters you start with, type situation. You get to pick your leader, and then you get to pick whatever characters you want that you've any characters that you've played with essentially in the main game. So if you do a full playthrough, you'll unlock a good chunk of the characters. Anyway, with this, choose one of the 6 powers and claim the pages of the Legend of Runersia as you aim to unify the land. I apologize ahead of time. I'll be mispronouncing this. I guess one other thing to point out about this game is it does have voice acting. It's all in, I believe, in Japanese. Apologies if I'm incorrect about that, but it's some of the dialogue has voice acting, and then all the cutscenes have voice acting. But the voice acting tends to be pretty quiet, so I will probably just let it play out on cutscenes. But during actual gameplay, I will probably just read it out loud, which also will probably go a little bit faster. Anyway. Let's go ahead and dive right in.
我らが大地ルーナジア、この世界を訪れしそなたよ、見るがいい。この地では古の彼方よりひとときもマナのシャワーが止むことはない。マナはルーンの神が人間たちに与えし神秘の力。人間たちはマナを浴びるほどにその能力を開花させていったのじゃ。並外れた知力、剣を持つ手には人力を超えた大いなる力、さまざまに繰り出される魔法、そして古代のモンスターを召喚させ、意のままに従わせる術さえもな。 いつしか彼らはルーンの騎士と呼ばれるようになったのじゃ。やがてルーンの騎士たちはマナの力に追い立てられるように高みを目指した。剣と知力、魔法によって己の陣を広げ、必要とあらば敵対するルーンの騎士を打ち破った。いくつもの国が生まれ、そしていくつもの国が消え去った。その歴史は幾度か繰り返されることとなった。そんなルーンの騎士たちにとって最も大切なものが5つのブリガンダインだった。その鎧あるいは装身具にはそれぞれルーンの神から授かった5つのマナストーンが組み込まれてあったのじゃ。ブリガンダインを身につけたルーンの騎士はそれは他の騎士を圧倒したのじゃよ。大陸の覇権をかけた戦いは司書ルーナジア戦記に克明に綴られ、同時に戦いを通して我らが知り得たある大切な真実も記されることとなった。だがあるルーンの騎士によってルーナジア全土が統一されると、司書はまるでそれを見届けたように戦火の中に消滅してしまったのだ。この世界を訪れしそなたよ、今ブリガンダインは正義、高潔、自由、誇り、そして自我の5つ。そなたにはそのいずれかを身にまとい、あるいは身にまとうことなく歴史に倣い大陸制覇に向かう6つの道がある。そしてそなたがルーナジアの各地を手中に収めてゆくたびに、司書ルーナジア戦記の失われたページはよみがえってくることだろう。しかるに統一を果たしたとき、そなたは知るのだ。このルーナジアで起きたすべての、そしてあらゆる物語を。
Runersia, year 781. 5 nations and 1 tribe plunged the land of Runersia into a new era of chaos. 6 rulers and their rune knights threw themselves into the flames of war, each with their hopes and expectations. Alright, so yeah, there are 6 choices. 5 of them have Brigandines. In this game, Brigandine is just anything that has that special stone attached to it, apparently. So it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to armor, which is what Brigandine is. But I have played as Narzalio Kingdom, and I've played as the Shinobi tribe. So you got Norzalio Kingdom, which is up here in the northwest. You got Republic of Guimole. You got Shinobi tribe. Holy Gustava Empire. This one does not actually have a Brigandine. It's as mentioned, there are 5 Brigadines, but there are 6 factions, and this one is the one that does not have a Brigandine. Mana Salicia Theocracy. I'll just call them the Theocracy at this point. I guess these guys are kind of like the Empire type faction, if you want to equivalent from the previous game. Speaking of the previous game, there's no relation story-wise between the Brigandine on PlayStation 1 and this Brigandine. They're completely different settings, practically. In fact, they're completely different art styles, as you can probably tell if you're familiar with the other game. And then United Islands of Mirelva. Mirelva? I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, and this is the pirate faction if you want to be a pirate. Alright, so for this playthrough, We can actually go ahead and click on these real quick. I think at this point I'll just go controller. It's just easier. There we go. Alright, so yeah, this ruler is Rubino. He is the keeper of the Brigandine of Justice and heir to the throne of Norzalio. Rubino's empathy for others and kind heart makes him loved by the people. He also possesses the strength of character to always do what is right. With the flames of war threatening to destroy his nation, Rubino IV steps onto the battlefield to fight in the name of justice. So if you want to go with these guys, each of the factions kind of have a number of bases. They're more or less pretty similar. The biggest difference, of course, is the leaders themselves have different starting stats and different spells and abilities, and then different starting rune knights, essentially. And then, of course, they also have different starting monsters. Usually every faction will have a few upgraded monsters that they start with. So some of them will... So a faction may start with like a Phoenix, for example, while other factions don't. Alright, Republic of Guimoile. Alright, so this is Eliza Uzala. She is the daughter of Alden Uzala, the bedridden 15th president of the Republic of Guimoile. The Sword of Onge, or Ong, awakens upon realizing the danger that the country faces and tasks her with a life-changing mission. Previously a ballerina performing with a secret identity, she must now accept her fate to don the Brigandine of Glory and perform on stage of battle. Oh wow, I just pressed all the wrong buttons. Give me a moment. Alright, sorry about that. So the reason why I'm messing up my button presses, if you look in the bottom right where it says B is select and A is return, it's really weird because obviously the controller I'm using, usually A is your confirm button and B is your cancel, but not in this game. So I keep pressing the wrong button for like canceling and all that. Anyway, so there we go. It did give me a chance to check the audio, and it seems like the voice audio is actually pretty loud, so I may be quiet for all that as well. The Shinobi tribe is ruled by women who reside in a fortified village deep in the mountains and valleys of the former Hazam nation. Their heirloom, the Brigandine of Freedom, represents the freedom these women have longed for. Talia, daughter of Chief Mother Della, fights for the future of the tribe, a future that won't be threatened by the wars of other nations. So, despite the flavor text here, this is not an all-female faction. That you do start with a number of male knights as well as one trans character. This was the first faction I played as and the one I initially recorded. Because Shinobi, I was like, oh cool, these probably have the access to the ninja class, because in the previous Brigandine, ninja was essentially a locked class until you can unlock it. By the time you unlock it, you've already beaten the game, unfortunately. So I was like, oh cool, but apparently there is no ninja class anymore, and as far as I can tell, there's not really anything ninja-like for majority of the characters involved in this faction, except for one. They'd also reference something called Shinobi Magic, but as far as I can tell, that Shinobi Magic is just shady white magic at best. So it's the setting's kind of weird. We'll just put it that way. But it is a kind of a fun faction. It is kind of in the middle, but it's completely isolated for the most part because it only has two ways in. Because it's like a deep forest area that's blocked off by mountains. So it's a pretty good one to like hole up in. You kind of have some flexibility of where you want to expand to. Holy Gustava Empire. Alright, so you got Tim Gustav. Alright, now he's done. He is the 13th Emperor of the Holy Gustava Empire. Their land is barren and ridiculed by their neighbors, and they have no Brigandine. Nevertheless, the Empire survived through strong family ties and the spirit of rebellion, which Tim calls the beautiful blood of the family. Tim aims to conquer Runersia to vindicate the name and blood of his family. Alright, so Rudo Marco, he is the legitimate son of Romanov, the holy sovereign of the Mana Silesia theocracy. Long ago, in the Mana Stone 30 Years' War between the Republic of Guimole's Mahana sect and the theocracy's Zai sect created a deep rift in the Rune faith. Rudo now dons the Brigandine of Sanctity in order to bring all of Runersia under the rule of the Zai sect. So yeah, there's essentially a religion revolving around the rune magic, and there's the Zai sect and the Mahana sect, which are represented by the factions that were mentioned. Alright, so you got Stella Hammett. She is the descendant of the legendary pirate Captain Hammett. The war has stirred up the wild pirate blood of the people of Merelva, and Stella decides to set off to conquer the Runersia with the Brigandine of Ego. Decisive and spontaneous, she decides it would be best to strike anyone else has a chance. I guess before anyone else has a chance. Her actions are straightforward and direct. So for this, I think I'm going to go with Republic of Guimole. I have not played as them yet. The only other thing I was considering is possibly Merelva. Much like the previous game, if you want to go for speedrunning strats, you generally want to go with a faction that has a lot of bordering forts. So like Holy Gustava Empire and Mana Silesia Theocracy definitely have a lot of borders. And what that means is having more borders means you can attack on more fronts in a single turn, which means you expand a lot faster. Personally, I don't play that way because playing that fast, generally the AI can't handle it. And the other reason is it kind of leaves out a lot of the gameplay, like leveling up and ranking up and all that cool stuff. And you can like upgrade characters and upgrade monsters, and it's a lot more fun to do it that way. So yeah, I may be playing at a slower pace than normal. Anyway, so Republic of Guimole. Confirm. Alright, so you actually have easy, normal, hard, and you can actually do custom difficulty. For the most part, the AI, I'll say it's better than the first game. I'll say that much. I'm willing to say that much. They're a little bit more clever. Generally, in the first Brigandine, it was either, if you have it on easy, they would just run at you. And then on the normal and hard difficulties, they'll kind of just hang back if they're defending. And once you engage them, they will automatically aggro and run at you. In this, they're a little bit more careful, but there are still ways to goad them into attacking. It's just not as easy. You also have a time limit, technically. The time limit is how long it takes you to take over the entire continent, which is not the final objective. Once you've taken over the continent, there is more to it, but you are no longer timed. The gameplay is by seasons, so essentially you have 120 seasons on normal and then 60 seasons on hard. I think personally, I have done it. I have done hard mode where you have 60 seasons, which is still plenty of time. It could be cut a little close if you end up lagging for whatever reason. But technically, the AI is supposedly better, so I think I'll go ahead and go with this. If necessary, I have ways to speed up taking over the continent if I need to. I am gonna, as mentioned, I do play a little slower. So on hard difficulty, let's do it. Skip the guide? Yes, we're gonna go ahead and do that. Council of Rune Knights, Republic of Guimole. In the self-proclaimed birthplace of the Rune Knights, can I press this safely? I'm afraid to press the button if it will skip the text or not. In the self-proclaimed birthplace of the Rune Knights, the setting president, Aiden Uzala, has not made a Republic appearance in half a year.
町は大層な盛り上がりを見せているというのに、大統領はやはりお姿を見せてはくれぬか。
Alright, give me one moment, I'm gonna check the audio. Okay, I went ahead and adjusted the volume. The issue I tend to run into with the voice dialogue is the music and the voice dialogue seems to just change volumes just whenever it feels like it. So I went ahead and just lowered the voice volume and I'm just going to read this. Tonight is the night of the ballet contest and the streets are alive with excitement, yet it seems our president is nowhere to be found. Even Guimole's greatest knight, President Alden Uzala, can do little against the unending passage of time. As a precaution, it may be prudent to begin preparations for the election of the next president. Indeed, Sir Kane, you may speak with reason. Ah, what about Eliza? Eliza? Of course, she may not be as presidential as her father, but there are many who think she would make a good president all the same. Huh, if you ask me, all she has to offer is garrulous drivel. And to think that she'd be governing our sacred country of Rune Knights. Hahaha, I suppose it was silly of me to expect the son of President Uzala's old rival to endorse his daughter. No, that is not what I... Speaking of Eliza, where is she anyway? I'm sure she's cavorting about the bustling streets and taking in the sights like a wide-eyed toddler. You certainly don't hold back. She was the daughter of the president as well as a Rune Knight counselor, but there are another side to Eliza Uzala that no one knew about. That in the world of ballet, she was known as Jill the dancer. Jill, aren't you joining us for a drink? We're supposed to be celebrating tonight. Sorry, have a good night. Huh, why am I not surprised? Night. Who's there? Please pardon the intrusion. I am but a hired guard, yet I beg leave to speak with you. You're from the Shinobi tribe, yes? You look rather young. This is your first time in this country? Yes, my name is Talia. I am the daughter of Chief Della of the Shinobi. The former Hazam nation gained independence by forming the Shinobi tribe, but they are often employed by other nations as mercenaries due to their excellent grasp of Shinobi magic. I never imagined ballet would look quite so beautiful and free. Free? That is the first time that anyone has ever said that of my performance. That cannot be. You dance as if you were a fairy with wings. My apologies. I assure you I was not neglecting my duties as a hall guard. No need. The Shinobi tribe's commitment to their missions is known far and wide throughout this country. I am unworthy of such praise, Miss Eliza. What? How do you know my name? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. The truth is, I saw you leave the council hall while patrolling. And I was carrying a rather large and ungainly bag for a Rune Knight. So you decided to follow me here to the theater, yes? Oh dear, and here I thought I could keep it a secret from everyone. I give you my word that I will not speak of this to anyone, not even if I am sent back to the village. Alright, Talia of the Shinobi, was it? I trust that you'll be as tight-lipped about this as you say, so off you go. Of course, but... Permit me one last thing, Miss Eliza. Please do take care of yourself. Oh? The Holy Gustava Empire has annexed part of the Norzalia Kingdom. What? The Gustava have been acting suspiciously for quite some time, but they aren't the only ones. Other countries have been behaving strangely as well. And there's more. It is about your father. Word of the president's illness has reached the ears of other nation leaders. But how? Talia? Talia! But Talia of the Shinobi had already vanished into the night. What is going on? The uneasy sense of foreboding that Eliza felt was soon to become reality. The Manus Alesia theocracy, though a proponent of a different sect of the Rune faith, had maintained friendly relations with Guimole for many years, until one of Guimole's senior statesmen was sent back, murdered in cold blood. A crisis was swiftly approaching the Republic of Guimole. The Brigandine of Glory and statues of the Moai-Ong sisters shook in a warning so powerful that it was felt throughout the country. But what is this? Miss Eliza, as expected, our Brigandine of Glory and the spirits of the Moai-Ong sisters have finally sensed the danger approaching this country. Magnificent. It was a sword of Ong. Should the country ever face imminent danger, it was said that the sword would appear before the Rune Knight to be entrusted with the country's ultimate destiny. Miss Eliza, the sword of Ong seems to be attracted to your unusually high mana power. The sword of Ong? The one permitted to wield this sword would bear the heavy burden of fulfilling their destiny as a Rune Knight, and following in the footsteps of the three Moai-Ong sisters to devote their life to protecting the nation. Miss Eliza, please accept this, the last will and testament, Moai-Ong sisters.
このエルザウザーラは我ら誇りのブリガンダイン、そして偉大なるムールエンジェ三姉妹の信託を得た。我はこのエンジェの剣を使いこなす術をまだ持たない。だがルーンの騎士よ、今我らはこの剣のもとに力を結集させ、ルーンの騎士発祥の地の誇りを全世界に知らしめなければならない。
I'm certain the Sword of Ong has made some grave error, Eliza. I am only joining you so that I can confirm this suspicion myself. Cain, this is not the time to behave like a spurned child. Even these two blackbirds are ready to put their lives on the line for the country. Have you no shame? With all due respect, Elder Muaha. I have... Muha? I guess it's Mu'a. I had no intention of even asking the Barretts for their assistance in the first place. Now I'll have to babysit them during battle just to make sure they don't flee like cowards. Cain, how can you say such a thing? Oh, Miss Eliza, please do not concern yourself with him. Neither Darian nor I have the time to worry ourselves over the opinions of those who can do nothing more than take advantage of their father's influence. What did you say? That's enough from you, Cain. Miss Eliza, we, the Blackbirds, are at your command. Isn't that right, Darian? Of course. Your wish is our command. Thank you. The enemy has already begun moving toward our territory. Let's go. Alright, organization phase. Alright, give me one moment. Okay, so this will probably be sort of a part 0, kind of going over the general stuff about Brigandine. For those who are not familiar with the game, Brigandine is essentially a tactical RPG. It has grid-based combat whenever you're in the battle phase, and then you have the kind of the organization phase, which is what we're in right now. We can use this opportunity to kind of summon more monsters for our Rune Knights, change classes, change gear, move troops around, send people on quests, and otherwise get ready for the combat phase. Usually on turn 1, no one really does any attacks during the battle phase, because usually everyone is taking this opportunity to move everybody and organize. Whenever you move a knight that has been moved cannot attack during the battle phase, so that is a key thing. They can still defend, but they cannot attack. A new addition to the game, which I'm pretty sure was probably in the first game, but it wasn't actually visible to the player, is combat power, which is CP. you will notice that any place that's bordering our country will show the combat powers of the bordering locations. So each of these locations will have some data. As you can see, there's some symbols below. The little helmet represents how many Rune Knights are there, and then the other symbol represents how many monsters there are. So in this case, there are 2 Rune Knights and 5 monsters amongst them. This will include monsters that are not assigned to a Rune Knight, in which case they'll be in parentheses. Also, I believe if a Rune Knight is wounded, they will also show up as a number in parentheses. Anyway, so a key thing about combat power is essentially kind of a power level to kind of base yourself off of. So generally, anyone that has a higher CP will usually have an overall better stats, better everything in general. Now, much like power levels being bullshit, CP doesn't necessarily mean you'll win. I've done battles where I've been beaten CP-wise by like over 8,000 and still was able to win. There are certainly tactical ways you can kind of make up for stuff like that. Now, one key thing that CP does is whenever you are doing attacks, the order of operations of how they get resolved is based off of CP. So, for example, if this location were to attempt to attack this location, and this location attempts to attack this location, this will have priority because it has higher CP, so the attack will be from here to this location, in which case I would be defending. Now, same thing would be here. If I were to attack this location down here and it was attempting to counterattack me, I would have my CP is higher, so my attack would go, and I would be the attacker in this battle. It could also be a situation where I'm attacking this location, and this location is attacking me. What will happen is this attack will hit me and pretty much interrupt my attack, in which case I have to defend instead. I'm not entirely certain if it fully interrupts it. Like, if I happen to have like 6 knights here and I attack with only 3 of them, and I defend with 3 of them, I don't know if that can happen. In my previous experience in the previous game, if you got attacked in this location, it usually stops any attacks that are coming. And that's kind of the gist of it. So, as mentioned, the first turn, you're kind of going to be going through all your locations. Each of these locations have some unique qualities to them. Each of them will provide its very own rune power or mana. Mana is used for upkeep for maintaining your monsters, and it's also used for summoning monsters, and that's pretty much all it's used for. If you're ever in a situation where your upkeep is higher than your mana reserves, you'll gradually lose. If your upkeep is higher than your mana gain, you'll gradually lose mana. And if you have no mana to spare to pay for that upkeep cost, your monsters will suffer stat penalties. All right, that's kind of the gist of it there. So, can I zoom out? Yes, I can. So here's the overall look of the map. The red locations are us. It shows us little cross swords to show us where our borders are. So we're bordering 4 nations, and out of all of our locations, only 2 of them are borders. So it's kind of an average start. So more than likely, what I'll probably be doing is I'll probably be making pushes into this location. Pushing up north and probably pushing into the Shinobi lands first, because these areas are pretty isolated and I don't have to worry about being attacked from multiple directions. And then I'll probably just hold the line here until I loop around. That's usually what I'll do. Anyway, so that's kind of the gist of that. Now, as I mentioned, each of the locations have different rune. They produce different amounts of mana. Capital cities, like this one here, produce even more mana and usually have more options for summoning monsters. Also, each of these locations have their own quest, which is different from the previous game. Quests are kind of based off of your location, and you have a little bit more flexibility on like what sort of quest you go on and what you're trying to get. There are opportunities to potentially get gear, experience, and more Rune Knights. It kind of lacks in the story department as far as quests compared to the previous game, but it's also a lot faster and easier to work with. Alright, so with all that said and done, like I said, this is going to be kind of a part 0, because there's a lot to go through, and I do want to read all the flavor text that's available. So, real quick, here's the summon screen. So in the capital, you have a lot of options. Other locations tend to usually have maybe 3 or 4 options, and then capitals tend to have 6. As you can see up top, there's a mana cost for summoning, and then below it is a cost, which is how much it costs for upkeep, but it's also how much it costs for the Rune Knight to actually use. You can summon as many monsters as you want, but it doesn't matter if your Rune Knights can't actually handle them. So with that, let's talk about our units. So we got some units here at the start. Here's all the starting characters, essentially. There's some that are also in different locations. So key things about Rune Knights. Rune Knights, so all the monsters in Rune Knights have similar stats. The only things that Rune Knights tend to have different is they have rune power and command range. Command range is essentially assigned at start, and there's not really very many ways to actually increase that. The higher your command range is, the more flexibility you have on how you spread out your monsters and position them. If your monster happens to go outside that knight's command range, they suffer severe penalties, stat-wise. And then rune power is essentially the total amount of monster cost that they can maintain. So right now, as mentioned, Liza actually has unnaturally high rune power. So she has 310 rune power, and right now she's using 195 of it to maintain the 3 monsters she has. Which she has a Flame Dragon, which is one of the upgraded monsters that she starts with, and then a Rock and a Centaur. So essentially the idea is to try to make full use of your rune power as best as you can. Few things to of course note is whenever you upgrade monsters, their rune cost tends to go up. So if you end up having your entire rune power taken up and then you upgrade a monster, you may find yourself in a situation where you can't actually fully utilize them anymore. Okay. Compared to the previous game, for the most part, all the staple monsters are here. I think, for the most part, they're all here, but they may have changed names. Like, for example, Djinns and Genies are now Elementals, and they function essentially the same way. The biggest difference, though, for Elementals compared to the Genies from the previous game is the Elementals can actually attack. In the previous game, Genies essentially only had their special breath attack abilities, and once they ran out of MP, they were kind of just there. But that's not the case for Elementals. Elementals can attack. It's still not advised, but they can at least attack if necessary. One of the new monster types is Goblins. Goblins are essentially just your shock troops. Lizardmen are still around, but they kind of share the same space as goblins. Goblins are essentially weaker and kind of a different type of shock troop, essentially. Giants are now Gyguses, for the most part. Hellhounds, they now have a base monster class called High Dog, and they don't become Hellhounds until you upgrade them. Besides that, let's see, Giants, yeah, I think that's everything. That's kind of all the new stuff. As for our monsters, there's a lot of them. We'll go ahead and go through them real quick, as well as all of our knights. So first things first, we'll go through all of our knights. Knights do have... let's see... There we go. So, I guess another big difference between the previous game. The previous game, you could only have one item equipped. Didn't matter what type it was, you could only have one equipped. In this game, you have actual equipment slots. You have a weapon, armor, helmet, and accessory. And what type of equipment you can equip is kind of based off what class you are. So in the case of Eliza, she of course has the Sword of Ankh and all that good stuff. And you can pull up their stats. Generally what their stats will do is they will give you certain passive abilities or give you stats. If you look in the top right, you can see there's a little sword and then a little red orb. In this game, there's elements, much like in the previous game, but in the previous game it was kind of both situations, where if you were a holy element, it was holy defense and holy offense, both together. In this game, you can actually kind of mix and match a little bit. So, for example, Eliza here has she has a 3 fire element defense and 2 fire element offense. so that's kind of how her elements work. So she's highly resistant to fire, as well as has the ability to dish out some decent fire element herself. So this can have some influence over... So you could be in a situation where you have an element that you're actually really good offensively with, but at the same time you could defensively have the opposite element, which can make you vulnerable to your own element in situations like that. It's kind of hard to explain. Usually the class itself will provide up to 3 orbs, and then the rest of it gets provided through items. Alright, so yeah, real quick. So yeah, Sword of On gives you 1 fire. Yeah, so the Brigandine gives her 2 fire. So from her class, she's getting 1 red orb for both attack and defense, and then she's getting 1 attack orb from her sword and 2 defense orbs from her Brigandine. All of the main leaders that have access to a Brigandine will always have these. They'll have a Brigandine item that will have the same passive called Mana Stone's Grace, and what that does is it makes her immune to all status conditions. It doesn't stop status debuffs, but it does stop all status effects like poison. So yeah. Alright, each of the characters also have skills in magic. Skills... There's not really much of a difference between skills and magic. In some situations, skills may not actually cost you mana. Essentially, your base attack will usually fall under a skill. Anything that has this foot icon and an X means you cannot use it after moving. So in combat, you can either move and then attack. In this case, if you want to use any of these abilities besides her base attack, she has to not be moving. And essentially, each of these have various effects. You can see their power. You can see each of these skills have their own accuracy ratings, their ranges, as well as how effective it is on certain units. So, for example, attacking sky units is actually not fantastic if you're a ground unit. It also shows if the ability allows for a counter. So her base attack, if she were to attack someone in melee, if the unit survives, they will counterattack. But if she uses like Crimson Terror instead, not only would she hit, she would also not take any. She wouldn't actually take a counterattack. All right, and then of course each of the characters have their own profiles. It's usually pretty short. It's usually a paragraph. So, daughter of the bedridden 15th president of the Republic of Guimole, Alden Azala. Yeah, so this is all the stuff we've already read before, so I'm not going to read it again. Alright, so we start with the Rose Knights. Each of the leaders of the nations have their own unique class that may be upgraded through the story. And then you'll have a variety of Rune Knights of various levels. Low-level Rune Knights are actually useful, because a lot of times they tend to have a lot of room to grow as compared to other characters. I mean, Muha here is pretty powerful, but at the same time he's not going to level up very much, because he's already level 21. The max level in this game, I believe, is 30. You can't really go beyond that. And every 5 or 10 levels, you'll have opportunities to upgrade or change classes. And the neat thing about the classes in this game, which I guess I can go over real quick. Let's go class. So there are multiple class types. There's a set of classes for males and a set of classes for females. Whenever you switch classes, if you had fully mastered the class you were so as you level up as a class, you'll gradually get mastery in it. When you get mastery in a class, it will give you opportunities to upgrade to the next tier of that class. But it also allows you to carry over abilities from that mastered class to other ones. So for example, right now he's a wizard, which means he's already mastered sorcerer and mage. If he were to switch classes right now, he would be able to carry all of the spells from sorcerer and mage, as well as I think some of the passives as well, and carry them over to another class. So if I were to make him a fighter right now, so if I were to make him a fighter right now, his stats obviously would drop quite a bit, because fighter's a low tier class, but he would carry over all the spells that are to the right there. So he would essentially be a fighter that can also cast magic. Same thing for passive abilities. So if you leveled up fighter, you could potentially make a wizard that can have health regen, for example. It's really neat. It does take a lot of time though, which is why you usually don't mess with it too much, because the AI unfortunately just can't keep up. Anyway, so kind of gist of that. So we have a wizard. I want to go back to units. Thank you. So Muha, a warlock of the Republic of Guimole, known as the most powerful one of the most powerful mages on the continent. Younger knights look up to him as a role model. However, he has a hard time instilling that same respect in his willful granddaughter Sugar. Due to Eliza losing her mother when she was just a child and her father always being busy with his presidential duties, it fell to Moa to educate both Sugar and Eliza, imparting his knowledge about magic to them as well. Yeah, there's also flavor text for all the monsters. I will go through all of them, so like I said, this is going to be a bit... Kane. Rune Knight of the Republic of Guimole. His father is known for his rivalry with Guimole's treasure, President Alden. Because of this, he is constantly at odds with Eliza. Although a capable Rune Knight, his pride and cynical attitude make him far less popular than Eliza. He is well versed in monster ecology and uses that knowledge to constantly research new formation theories and craft battle strategies. He's a knight, which is a path you can take from fighter. You can either become a berserker or you can become a knight. A knight essentially gets you access to heal spells and things like that. It also tends to go very well against any sort of dark enemy, such as undead. Alright, this guy is also a knight. Okay. Yeah, nothing to point out there. Alright, Darian. This resilient and highly skilled Blackbird Knight is a member of the Barretts. Abducted from the autonomous region of Almera as a child, he was trained to be a docile and loyal soldier. The Blackbird unit is made of Barrett fighters and is a vital military asset to the Republic of Guimole. Unlike the other Barrett fairies, Darian exhibits exceptional musical talent. The melodies he performs on the Valero are full of a gentle melancholy, feelings he bears for his people, and they resonate deeply with Eliza. So Barretts are a race in this setting. They kind of have their own transitions. They start out as like really small pixies, essentially, and then they will eventually evolve into their more adult forms. The lifespan of a Barrett is actually rather short, from what I understand. Right, we got a rogue. So rogues are the new class in this game. Their key thing is they have double movement, which allows them to attack, move, and then move again. They have higher evasion. They also have access to dark magics. So they're kind of a little bit of a hybrid class. Alright, a Rune Knight of the Blackbird unit from the Barrett Fairies. She is unconcerned about her background as a slave knight and remains cheerful and pure of heart. She responds to Eliza's call for Rune Knights willing to protect the glory of the Republic of Guimole and joins her troop alongside Darian, each with their own intentions. Together they shoulder their sorrowful fates, nobody quite knowing for what purpose they march toward the battlefield. Okay. Alright. This location. Okay, we've got some people here. So, as you can see, we have a level 1 character here. But her being level 1 and having 147 rune power means she has a lot of room to... Every time you level up with a Rune Knight, you get rune power. So if we get her some levels, she can definitely become a decent force. Alright, so we got Knight Conrad. So he is also a knight. A butler who has been serving the Ozala house since the time of Eliza's grandfather. He watches over Eliza alongside Moha on behalf of President Alden when he's busy with national affairs. He tends to lecture Eliza when they meet, but that's because he has high expectations of her as the next president. An outstanding tactician and top chess player in Guimole, his epic battle against Moha once upon a time is still an oft-told tale among chess enthusiasts. Right, and then we got Patricia, who's currently a bard. So bards are kind of a odd class. So in the previous game, there wasn't really there was a green element, but there wasn't really a specific green element spellcasting class. It tended to get kind of mixed in with the other classes. But in this game, there is one, and they tend to start out with just kind of some basic buffs and debuffs. If you can get one to the next tier, I can't remember what they're called. I think they're called minstrels or something like that. You can get access to things like thunder, as well as the react spell, which allows you to make another unit that has acted to act again. So kind of useful on that front. At the same time, I will probably end up switching her to a different class, because she's only level 1, which means she could probably be... I can afford to switch her to another class without losing anything. If I do switch her to another class, she will not carry over these spells because she's not mastered in Bard yet. Patricia, this dainty lady, had descended from Mole nobles. Her pedigree basically guarantees her a place on the council, but when she awakened to her mana power, she chose the battlefield instead. She is said to possess the most beautiful voice in Guimole there. Is even a story about her putting a rampaging dragon to sleep with her singing. At first glance, she seems elegant and ladylike, but her strong desire to protect her subjects as a noblewoman can drive her to behave unexpectedly. Okay, I'll go over to monsters later. Right now we'll just focus on knights. So we got one here. Sorry, wrong button. Alright, so we got Marcosius, who is a fighter. This battle-hardened mercenary has seen it all. He once demonstrated his skills at a national martial arts tournament, earning him employment as a bodyguard for the Zala family. It therefore came as no surprise he quickly made himself available to Eliza when he heard of Guimole's military foray. Besides being skilled in swordsmanship, he's also a good judge of character. Of all the clients he has worked with throughout his mercenary career, the Zala family is the one he trusts the most. Okay. We got Vayne the Berserker. So this is another route you could take with the fighter class. They have higher counterattack damage. They also have access to an AoE attack, and that can't miss. And then you have Max Rage, which is a high power but low accuracy ability. Known as the Mad Dog of Angela, he once slaughtered countless enemies during a battle near the border with Bana Cilicia, despite a serious injury. This crazed fighter completely loses himself during battle, relying on his instincts to help him survive at any cost. Though he boasts loudly of his brave feats in the taverns he frequents, the truth is he is haunted by the unforgettable faces and dying screams of his enemies. Right, this is Avenir, the Bishop. So this is the male path for going for healing spells. Both female and males have a holy route for spellcasters. They have slightly different focuses. Males end up favoring AoE stuff, while the females will favor initially the single target blasts that do quite a bit of damage. Citizens have strong trust in this amicable and kind Mohana priest, in charge of guiding lost sheep back into the fold. Beneath that facade, however, hides a man who manages the dark side of the country's council. In order to maintain the Blackbird unit, for example, he kidnaps Barrett's fairy children and throws them into orphanages for indoctrination. He was once a soft-hearted priest, but something has since warped his mind. He now freely expresses his cruel side by reveling in his enemy's anguish on the battlefield. So yeah, not everyone's a nice guy in this game. Alright, and then last units that are available to us. We have Diana the Dancer. This is essentially the base class that leads into the assassin classes and all that. So this is what will lead to the rogue class. Right off the bat, you only start with Venom, which is not a particularly powerful spell, but it has the potential of causing poison. And she does start with higher evasion, but she doesn't have hit and run yet. A fortune teller renowned for her accurate predictions, as well as her habit of asking the stars for guidance in everything, including how much to charge for her services. This usually results in the wealthy paying through the nose, while children and the poor pay nothing. No one is quite sure if it's the stars or Diana herself who is looking out for the underprivileged. On the battlefield, she is calm and collected and reliable. She avoids the limelight and tries to be in a position to support the rest of the unit as best as she can. Alright, one thing I also want to point out real quick about monsters. In the previous game, monsters did not have gear, and this one they do. And depending on what monster they are, decides what sort of gear they can equip. They can only equip specifically monster gear, which is only for monsters. So they have their own loot pool, essentially. Alright, then we have Temple Knight Rose. So this is a Temple Knight. The physical class that female characters get access to, besides Dancer and I guess Bard if you hate yourself, is the Lancer class, and then the Lancer class leads into Temple Knight and then eventually Valkyrie. They end up having a little bit of a mix of spells and attacks. I guess one major difference between the previous game is they don't really have access to Spear Throw, unlike in the previous games. But they do have access to parry, which gives them a chance to just take less damage, which is always helpful. Alright, so Rose. Although young, Rose commands a security unit that patrols the central square of Gargar, capital of Guimole. She is also a pious devotee of the Rune's Faith Mahana sect and deeply respects Eliza for her determination to shoulder the glory of Guimole. Viewing her strong sense of responsibility as a model to follow, as far as personality goes, she is as straight-laced as they come, which gives her a commanding presence on the battlefield even more impressive than most men in the same position. This could also be the reason she has a battalion of female fans. Alright, so before I mess around with any of the monster stuff, let's go ahead and see what we're going to do here. So we need to guard 3 locations. So in this game, much like other games I play, I try to use only females only. More than likely, I'm gonna have to have a few males as guards, because I'm not gonna have enough bodies to do what I need to do. So I'm just seeing what I have for options. So I can move you. Okay, so we'll hold off. We'll send a unit here. You can see the arrows where they're moving. While we're here, we have no enchantresses, so we're going to go ahead and give ourselves one. Okay, so with that, she now has access to actual spellcasting classes, or actual spells. So she has Frost, Charm, and Flight. Pretty much I just need her for Frost right now. Okay. And then for units, not sure I want to mess around with elementals this time. What do we got for summons here? Dragons, that's nice. We have access to demons here. Alright. It's not too bad. Got any, yeah, I'm trying to kind of max, like I mentioned, I'm trying to just maximize what I have available to me. So that gives me 25? Yeah, 25, it looks like. Let's do... Oh, did not realize you had that. I'll take that. Those are okay. So yeah, we'll summon one ghoul. Ghouls are great for bait. Just want to point out. Okay, so she's good to go. I'm gonna send her off this way. Okay, and then we got. So that troop is moving. You're a rogue. Gives me that. Do something like this, I guess, for now. It's not too bad. Okay, we'll send you off to there. Alright, units. Okay. Let's take you. Do that. Alright. Alright, Muha. Go here. Okay, so that leaves just you two. Alright, we'll move you in a second. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, we need some... You're moving there, you're moving there. Okay, so I have... It's not too bad. Okay, in that case, let's do troops. What do you got to summon here? Not anything fantastic. Alright. I'd rather have rocks than the other ones. So, oh, what's your rune range? 4. Okay. Yeah, I want at least one melee, so let's we only have so much rune power at the beginning, or mana at the beginning to play around with. So we'll do something like that. And take one more of these. Okay. Mermaids are so mermaids on their own are kind of meh. They can only do, they're really only effective in water, or when their opponents are in water. Actually, no, when they're in water. But if you can upgrade them, they have a little bit more to them. They get access to the frost spell, which having that on regular monster units is actually really potent, because you can essentially just focus down an enemy with just spells. All right, so we're gonna move you to here. And to be honest, there's... What monsters do you have access to here? Dragons. Okay, I can play with that. I'm not a huge fan of mandrakes. They're better compared to the previous game, but they're not something I like to rely on because their movement's kind of meh. So I think I might go ahead and release these monsters for now. see about getting stuff going on there. We shouldn't be attacked in the first turn as long as I have bodies somewhat in locations. Because they have the same restriction. If they move a unit, they can't actually do anything else with it. Yeah. What summons you got here? Yeah, that's actually not a good. That's not a good selection at all. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of as good as it's gonna get. All right, we're gonna go ahead and release these monsters for now. I'm gonna go ahead and send this guy on a quest, or sorry, this guy on a quest. So each of the characters kind of have favorite outlooks for certain quests, and then each of the quests have their own potential rewards. So out of all these, there's not really much to play around with. We'll just go with this one for now. So yeah, I've got 2 units heading there. What quest do you have here? Not anything good. Summons? Get you some goblins, I guess. Yeah, a couple of goblins. We just want bodies up there. Oh yeah, goblins have the potential of doing status effects as well. Okay, so they're moving. So we have 3 knights here. We have 2 knights going up to here. I am gonna go ahead and release these 2 monsters. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and send him on a quest. I'd like to get a spear. Okay, so we have 2 units going there, so that'll be 3. Got 2 units going there. We have 2 units going here, so we need to get 1 more in there. Which unfortunately there's not much to pick from. Also, just real quick. I'm stealing your helmet. So this actually gives minus 10 HP, but it gives plus 15 rune power. Which means I actually have room for more stuff. Not anything I can use though. That's fine, I'll just give give a little flexibility for upgrades. I'm taking your staff. Yoink. Alright. So you're going on a quest, you're moving. Alright, so I just need to get this troop set up. We need 1 more troop to move over. We'll send Kane to try to get some stabs. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, summons. How much room do you got? You have 179, it looks like. So 179 pretty much means I can do well, I could do a number of things, but I don't actually have the mana to pay for it. We're just gonna give you a bunch of dogs, because that's all I can afford right now. Shouldn't need to summon anything else. We can just summon next round. So with that, let's go ahead and move you. Yeah, unfortunately we only have 5 female characters. And we're probably going to end up having to use a number of these characters to actually defend locations. So with that, we can now go... What button is it? No, not that one. There it is. We go to attack phase. So we can kind of get a gist of what we have right now. So yeah, we can't attack with anyone that's moved, so no one's attacking this round. Alright. So that's what we're looking at right over here. Level 22 Saint, 14, 17. Over here... Swordsman with no monsters. The leader of the Shinobis are over here. She's only level 8 though, but she essentially fights like a spear, a lancer essentially. Over here, okay, that one's not too bad. That one's a little bit more dangerous. You got a paladin, as well as an archangel, hello, and a Simurga. So yeah, in the previous game there was only one upgrade path for rocks, which was phoenixes. Now you can either go phoenix or you can go this thing. And then over here we have a Viking, which is I think the next tier after Berserker, Temple Knight, and a Automaton, which is its own unique class. Alright, so that's what we got. Alright, well, I'm not going to attack this round, so we'll go ahead and end this. Soon after Eliza had formed her unit, the great warlock Muha's daughter, Sugar, appeared with a report on the enemy. Oh, Ellie, it's been so long. Oh, but I finally caught up with you. Child, you will not address her so informally on the battlefield. Call her Captain Eliza. Apologies. Miss Captain Eliza, here's all the information Grandpa and I compiled on the war with our enemies. Not Grandpa, Grand Warlock Muha. Thank you, Sugar. I do appreciate your help. Well, let's see. There's the Norzalios always going on about justice, but since the death of King Rubino III, there's been nothing but unrest. Prince Rubino IV has been named successor, but there are rumors that weak Wumole or the Gustavo are behind the late king's death. That's absurd. Of course, it's all nothing but gossip. Those who constantly cry justice are often blind to their own injustices. Miss Eliza, we must use the Brigandine of Glory bestowed upon us by the Rune God himself to drive these hypocrites from our lands at once. But before we get to that, let's not forget the country formerly known as Azam. I believe they're the ones we hire as guards and such whenever we have big events going on, right? Though now they're called the Shinobi tribe or some such. Yes, the name is derived from a special type of witchcraft that many in the country excel at called shinobi magic. I have heard that other countries use them in much the same way we do to gather information. Quite the valuable resource. Yes, I've heard that as well. In fact, I spoke with a mercenary working in town. You did? Yes, I do believe. Yes, she said her name was Talia. Talia? Indeed, and quite young too. I suspect it was her first time being sent to another country. Please take care of Miss Eliza. If this girl truly is a Talia, then she is a leader with abilities that surpass those of her mother Della. What? The Shinobi tribe has survived for so long by intricately weaving themselves between major nations such as ours. It was the only choice they had. Though for the Shinobi, it is just a long history of disgrace and humiliation from being forced to live under the control of others. I have heard that Talia is taking advantage of the land's current state of unrest to start a revolt in pursuit of freedom. In pursuit of freedom. Eliza paused as she remembered the expression on Talia's face as she spoke of the beauty and freedom she had witnessed on the stage. That said, when people have been denied freedom for so long finally get a taste, following any law of the land can be difficult. What does that mean? It means that next is the swelling desire to take freedom from others. What? I suppose a Barrett would understand that better than most. It seems true enough. Once free of restraints, mankind begins to have some of the strangest ideas. I know I've thought about giving up this life of endless warfare for a chance to make some children with someone. Kate? Oh, but there's no need to fret. A Barrett fairy giving birth is essentially a death sentence, so I suppose it won't be that easy to become a mother. Kate let out a light-hearted laugh. But this only made Eliza all the more aware of the freedoms not granted to Barrett fairies like Darian and Kate, or the people of the Shinobi tribe. Either way, Miss Eliza, now that the Shinobi tribe have their taste of freedom, they are a threat to our country. We must use the Brigandine of Glory to bring them to their knees as soon as we are able. If that is what must be done as protectors of the birthplace of the Rune Knights, it shall be done. Next, the Holy Gustava Empire. This country started as an autocratic state ruled by the Gustav family. As you know, they had already set on a path of conquest ahead of the current turmoil, and it's well known that the Gustava have never possessed a Brigandine of their own. So Emperor Tim Gustav seems determined to take a Brigandine by any means necessary. It has all the markings of another Gustav incident. Well, with the sword of Ankh on our side, we are unstoppable, right, Ellie? The translation for this game is awkward. Absolutely. Eliza gazed down once more at the Sword of Ankh. Once, when the Gustava family had recklessly threatened their borders, the Mole Ankh sisters had used this sword to restore peace to the land. And even now it shone brilliantly. However, Eliza was keenly aware that the sword had yet to regain its full power. She was also aware that this lack of power was comparable to her own abilities as a Rune Knight. I promise you this, Sword of Ankh, one day I'll become a skilled Rune Knight worthy of your power. Next, the Mana Silesia Theocracy. While at the Academy of Witchcraft, I was taught that they were on rather good terms with the Republic. That's all in the past now. But very recently, the body of a Rune Knight visiting Mana Silesia was recently returned to us. He was almost unrecognizable. It's as if the Holy Sovereign Romanov has been possessed by some evil spirit. I can think of no other explanation. An evil spirit? As you know, the Holy Sovereign is a patron of the Zai sect of the Rune Faith, whereas our country follows the Mohana sect. But we've never had cause for conflict between our sects, as the humble Holy Sovereign is a tolerant man, or at least that is what we thought. Now he suddenly dons the Brigandine of Sanctity and declares the world will be united under the Zai sect. Come to think of it, I have heard rather unsavory things about his son Rudo. They say he is quite the ruthless police captain. In any case, as protectors of the Sanctuary of Mohana, we simply cannot allow them to do as they please. Mohana's Rune Knights shall not waver. Should the Zai sect approach us with hostile intentions, we will rise to meet them. Lastly, we have a rather regrettable report on the United Islands of Morelva. At least regrettably for me personally. Ah, how their glittering emerald seas speak to me. Temper your romanticism. Besides, you're well aware that this is the nation of people who were originally pirates. Miss Eliza, there is news that a pirate scion by the name of Stella has taken it upon herself to start mobilizing the islands. A rather fitting manifestation of the arrogance of the Brigandine of ego in the physical world. We must show them how badly outclassed they truly are by Miss Eliza, the reincarnation of the Moy-Ong sisters. Exactly, and if Ellie controls the Morelvan archipelago, I'll be able to visit their beaches. Oh, sugar, that's not the point at all. Thank you, Bois, sugar. So it would seem that each country has its own reasons for the surge in unrest. All we can do now is place our faith in the Brigandine of Glory and fight until the bitter end. Sir? Yes, sir. Stop playing soldier, child. Your report is done. Now it's time for you to head back. He's right. Military regulations clearly state that only witches that have passed their mesophyte trials are allowed on the battlefield. Well, speaking of which, haha, surprise! I very recently passed my mesophyte trials. Sugar grinned as she shared her results from the Republic's Witchcraft Certification Board. Impossible. Well, well, you skipped right over Neophyte and passed the Mesophyte trial. That's my granddaughter. I suppose that means you'll be joining our ranks, Sugar. Of course, with such a young, energetic witch on your team, we'll be very near unstoppable. Humph. Well, don't let this old warlock hold you back. Excellent, let's be off then, for the glory of Guimole. We now have Sugar. Alright, quest results. We got a Revival Stone. So, when monsters die, they're usually gone for good. But there is a revival mechanic in this game, and if you use a Revival Stone, you can revive your, I think your 10 most recent deaths. Found a monster. This is pretty rare, so we actually found ourselves a Black Elemental. And he failed. The monster you found will be assigned to the base at which the Dispatch Knight is stationed. Okay, so that is Season 1. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I am the Depressed Hero. This is Brigandine. I'll see you guys in a bit.